Let's go ahead and get into our main issue, I would say, for today's podcast. We're going to be talking about your RTK mocks, but we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to take one player in a pick in a position that you selected them at that we really like and we like the value at, and we're going to talk about them. I think this is a good idea that Jordan Hattie brought it to my attention to kind of spice this up a little bit. And we all know who we are going to say, just so we didn't have any duplicates, okay? I don't want you to think that we're phony or anything, but we wanted to share as much of these RTK mocks as we could. So who wants to start? I think Jordan should start.
I'll
Answer my
start.
question.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Tyler Sokin, Kansas Kingdom, his pick. He had Landon Dickerson at 63, and
Yeah.
I'm sure pretty much everyone listening figured that I would get Landon Dickerson in here at some point. I just don't think he's going to be there at 63, and that is a pick where if he's still there and the Chiefs don't have a center signed, that you're like banging on the table, like yelling at them to pick him, because I get the injury concerns. I get that he's a guy that you're taking a risk on, but he's a really, really good player. He's definite first round talent, like probably fringe top 20 tape. He's a fantastic player. And I think that you can shore up that center position for 4 years with a player like that. And it's 63. That's a really good value pick.
I think it's possible he falls to 63. We've seen
It'd be
guys with
nice.
injury histories that have fallen because of them and hard. And his is one of the worst I've seen coming out of college recently. So I think it's entirely in play, especially in a year. Think about it. It's a year where the teams can't go and check his medicals at the combine.
Yeah.
So that's also going to play into it too. And I'm starting to think even more that he will be there at 63. Should the Chiefs bank on that? Probably not. They should probably have at least, if they don't have a left tackle going into the draft, they should have a center going into the draft. It needs to be somebody like David Andrews. They need to make a play because we saw Rodney Hudson got traded to the Cardinals. So they're running out of it was a deep center for agency class, but they're kind of running out now because Alex Mack also signed with the 49ers. So now we have David Andrews, and if Austin Reiner's not coming back after that, it gets kind of scary. So the Chiefs are going to have to do something. Landon Dickerson's an option, like Jordan said, at 63, and I think he might be there at 63.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Landon Dickerson. I just like the big boys. I like all the centers really in this draft class. They got some good centers. So Jordan, who do you have at your second little pick there?
God's Plan, Joshua Breger. You can follow him on Twitter at Breger Joshua. He has Josh Palmer at 259, and he's a guy I just dropped his scout on Wednesday. I don't have him as a 7th round pick. I don't have him as a 6th round pick. I don't have him as a 5th round pick. I have him as a 4th, and Kent Swanson from Arrowhead Pride jumped into my thread. I thought that I was being like really bold putting him in the 4th round. Kent said he gave him a low 2, and I think Josh Palmer is going to be a better pro than he was a college player, but I give him a 2, probably not. But if he's there at the end of the 7th round and the Chiefs don't take him, I'd really be scratching my head. Like, even regardless of what they had taken earlier in the draft, he's going to be a much better player than a 7th round pick.
I like your big body wide receivers.
Yeah, I've not even watched this tape just because he's been that's a very under the radar one. So I've heard his name a few times, but I haven't even watched his tape. So you know what, Jordan, you convinced me. I'm down. Let's take him in the second round.
That was easy.
What's your third pick then?
My third pick, Garrett Williams. You can follow him at Garrett720. He had Dalen Hayes at pick 207, which is a 6th rounder. I think I gave Dalen a late 4, early 5, and I believe that was before the Senior Bowl and all the stuff like that time period. So Dalen's stock, I think right now, is probably a 4th round pick at this point, maybe a 5th. So he's held pretty consistent, and I think that he's a guy that I compare him to Mike Dana a lot, not because they play similarly, but kind of the size in that they are not going to do too much their rookie season, but also, they're going to bring some sort of contribution. And there's value in that as a day 3 pick where he can kind of come in, step in, be a rotational edge player. So I like Dalen Hayes a lot, especially as a 6th rounder.
I wouldn't mind that either. Yeah. We definitely could always use depth at edge, especially last year because we had some injuries too. And so getting guys that could play, let's say like 20% of snaps or something, and on day 3 is always a plus.
I like Dalen because you just know what he is. So I know what you said, Jordan, is we've taken him. He's been our most selected player in our mock draft just because of his consistency. I think is you know what you get, and especially when it comes to depth on the edge. He's not going to be like a stud. He's not going to be like a superstar. Maybe he will be, but he doesn't project like that. And I think that that's fine for what the Chiefs need, especially if you're going to draft someone that late in the draft. Not everyone's going to be a L'Jarius Sneed, right? We can't always bank on drafting a guy in the 4th round and being an absolute stud like L'Jarius Sneed's going to be. Those guys are few and far between. So if you can just get someone who can contribute regularly and get in there and rough it up a little bit, I think that's perfect.